Hopefully she is in. Beth, are you there? There she is. Okay, unmute. Unmute. I'm sorry, guys. Just give us 1 second.
Yeah.
There she is. Thank you.
Jump onto the 16-year-old's laptop.
Great. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I am Meryl Sultanic, and somewhere in this mess of people is Beth Latanzi. If you want
I
to-
am here. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, good afternoon. Did I say good morning?
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. And we are the 2 full-time faculty members of the education department, if you don't already know either of us. So thank you for coming. We are also recording this, so if you have any friends that could be interested in the education programs, please share this. We will also be sharing this with the community as well. So thank you for coming. We're just going to tell you a couple of things about our program. What would be great is if those of you that are here, if you would be able to get into the chat and just write us what you're interested in doing, what level of education you're interested in teaching. Are you interested in early childhood? Are you interested in middle years? Are you interested in secondary? And that will just help us a little bit with our presentation. Beth, do you have access to the chat?
I do. Well, I can certainly see it, but I don't think that I can only reply to everyone, but I can see the chat,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we will go ahead and start. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Merle, I'm thinking that it looks like the chat is private and only you can see it.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will get to it
Okay.
in a minute. Unless you want to start talking and I will check the chat and then we can go from there.
Sure, you could check it during our little video thing.
Or I could do that. Okay, then I will go ahead and start.
Okay.
Well, welcome to our seminar about our education programs. We will start with a little video.
You need to share your screen. Merle, are you sharing your screen?
You can't see it?
No.
I'm sorry. Why is it not? Let me try again.
Yep.
Give me a second. Okay, do you see this?
Nope.
You don't see a screen.
All we see is you.
Okay, hold on a second. How about now?
Nope.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Yep. Here we go. Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Oh my, every time I check the chat, it stops. Okay, hold on. I won't
Check
touch
the
it.
chat later. We'll do that later.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so if you decide that you want to be a teacher, there is a steady need for teachers every year. That's in all grade levels. It's even more so now, especially with substitute teachers. It's such a crazy time. And there is an extreme need for teachers. There is an even greater need for preschool teachers that have a degree, either an associate's degree, which we offer here, or a bachelor's degree, which we articulate into four-year schools in order for you to achieve. And the average rate for early childhood teaching jobs right now is 17% and 11 to 15% in all other grade levels.
I also think it's worthy to say that a lot of teachers who perhaps didn't think they were going to retire for 2 or 3 years since COVID has come along have now decided that, you know what, might be a good time to retire. So schools and centers are definitely going to be looking for educators.
And that's in all grade levels.
Correct.
So it's important for everyone to know whether you're already in the education program or whether you're considering the any of the education programs. It's important for you to understand the requirements that everybody has to meet in order to get certified in any of the age levels. If you're going to go to a four-year school and you want to get a bachelor's degree in any of our three programs in early childhood, in middle or secondary, which you need in middle years and secondary, you have to have a bachelor's degree to get a job in a public school. And if you're interested in early years up through third grade, from kindergarten to third grade, again, you will need a bachelor's degree. Any of these state-approved teacher education programs, the four-year universities, that includes a student teaching aspect, or field experience, all of which is part of any state-approved teacher education program. You have to have a 3.0 GPA in order to get into any four-year school education program. You also need a 3.0 when you finish in order to get your certification in teaching. So something to keep in mind while you're in school here, when you transfer, if you transfer, in order for you to get any sort of a state-approved certification, you will need a 3.0 minimum GPA. When you leave here, and this is the case with every age level, any of our three programs, when you leave Montgomery County Community College and you transfer to a four-year school, you will need to take what they call these PAPA exams. So it is a set of exams that focuses on reading, writing, and math that every teacher has to take and has to pass. But in order to transfer from our education program to a four-year university education program, you must have taken and passed these exams. You can transfer without passing them, but you cannot get into any education programs in the four-year universities without passing these exams. We recommend that you try and you take them as early in your college career as you possibly can. If you're taking the math courses, Math 103 and 104 at Montgo, we recommend that you take the PAPA exam for math as soon as you finish so that it's all fresh in your mind. When you take your English 101, 102, that would be a good time to take the writing piece of your PAPA exam. You can retake the exams as many times as you want in order to pass them, but obviously it costs money every single time that you take them, and it also takes time. So as early as you can start them, the better off you are when you want to transfer. There are two sets of exams. The first one is this PAPA that we just talked about, and that's the one that you take before you transfer. When you're done at a four-year university and you're trying to get your state certification, you will be taking a higher level set of exams, which is called the Praxis 2 exams. Those are much more specific to a concentration area if you're in secondary. If, you know, pedagogical type of exams if you're doing early childhood or middle years. It's very much more specific, not just the reading, writing, math. Questions quickly before we move on past these certification requirements. It's something that we often get questions on.
And just to keep in mind, folks, that 3.0 GPA is about an 85% across your grades. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And our four-year institutions and the state are very, very clear on that GPA requirement.
Yeah, there's no leeway. Either you have it or you don't. I'm not sure why. There we go. So we just talked about these basic skills testing. That's the PAPA exam. There's also a new set of exams called the core exams. It is a choice between the PAPA and the core. It's simply a new testing company that has come in and trying to make money. Some people say that the PAPAs are easier than the core. Some people say the cores are easier than the PAPA. I think it's very similar to kind of the SAT versus ACT type of thing. It does the same thing at the end of the day, but there are two choices at this point. However, what the four-year schools will do is now they have this program, which is great, that if you took the SATs in high school and you got at least a 500 or more on one of those sections, it will automatically give you credit for passing the PAPA exam in that academic area. So that's something that's really important to keep in mind, the 500 or more. You will have to show proof of that, but if you have it, it will be really helpful for you, and then you don't have to worry about the exams.
Yeah, it's just kind of a online information that you fill out and complete, and you reach out to the college board who has your scores, and then those scores would get sent to the four-year institution you plan to go.
So one of the things that we require, and this is required of every education major, all three levels of our education majors, you're going to need to get clearances. You need 4 different clearances in order to get into schools to observe or all the way up to student teaching. So in a lot of our courses, there are required observation hours where you're going to need to go into classrooms. So you will need to get all of these clearances done as soon as you decide to start. We recommend that as soon as you register for EDU 100, which is the Introduction to Education course, that you go ahead and apply for the clearances. That way you have them. One of the good things about having the clearances right at the beginning is if you're continuing on at Montgo and you don't take a break, that does not include the summers, but you go every semester without a break, then you don't have to retake your clearances at all while you are a student at Montgo. That can change when you start student teaching, but up until that point, you don't have to retake them as long as you don't take a break from being a student at the college. You'll need the criminal background check, the child abuse clearance, the national FBI clearance, the fingerprinting, and the mandated reporter, which is actually a new one that is just started with it's just started being required. It is an free online course that you have to take. I think it's 3 hours, right, Beth?
I think they say 6, but I don't think anyone.
Oh, really?
It says maximum 6-hour course, but I believe everyone's done in about 3.
Okay. And basically what that's for is it gives you all instructions on what you are mandated to report if you see certain things in your classroom with your students. You'll get a certificate at the end of that, which will be considered one of your clearances. What's very nice now is that we can't say this for the last few years. It recently just started that now all 3 of these can be done online. You don't have to send in paperwork by hand. You used to have to do that. You used to have to send payment by hand. And a lot of them will give you immediate results. So I believe the criminal background check, and I think even the child abuse clearance now gives, maybe not the child abuse clearance.
Yeah, it does.
I thought, yeah, they
Yep.
give you immediate results.
Child abuse and the mandated reporting is done right away.
Correct. The FBI, you need fingerprints taken. It's very interesting how they're doing this in the time of COVID. But I actually think that it's more streamlined now than it was before, even with COVID.
Agreed.
You fill out the information online, you take it, you make an appointment at any of these places that are near you, you take the paperwork in, you get your fingerprints done, and then they will email you your results. One of the problems that we have a lot, and just take note of it, is that we have students that do not print out their results as soon as they get them and open them up on the computer. You can't go back. It's a problem all the time. And we have students that said, so don't open results until you know that you can print them out or
And
save them.
definitely do not open them on your cell phone.
And don't
at
open,
all.
don't open them on your
They will
phone.
be gone and you'll be back to square one. So
Right.
you need to get to, as Mrs. Sultanic said, your laptop, your PC, but your printer needs to be right there so that you can print out a few copies and then scan and save them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really important. I don't know about you, Gary. I haven't heard of a way for kids to get back into it other than going through the entire system and calling the agencies and seeing if they can get another copy or redoing the clearance from the beginning. I haven't seen another way.
My students, the students who have incurred that problem literally had to go back to square one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you're right, Dr. Bundy, for sure. They definitely make it difficult for them. And they will oftentimes tell them that, they can just use the PAE number that's attached to the registration form. And that's not true. None of us can look that up and no schools will do that either. So
That's right. Yes, you have to have the actual printed certificate, the printed certificate. These are, all of them right now are free no, excuse me,
No.
criminal background check, the child abuse clearance, and the mandated reporting, if you go in as a volunteer, which we give you all of those steps and exactly how to do it, are of no cost to you. For the national clearance, you do have to pay for your fingerprinting, and they take it via credit card when you go to get the fingerprinting done.
I think it's $23 and some odd cents.
$24, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really important, and this goes for all of our education students, whether you are thinking of becoming one or you are already one. It's important for you to know that some of the advisors in the advising office are not very familiar with the education programs. They have to advise on so many different programs that some of them might not know as much as the ones that are specifically allotted to our education program. Kristen Fulmer is our designated education advisor at Central Campus, and Frank O'Neill is our designated education advisor at the West Campus. If you're unsure of courses that you want to take next, we have a lot of students that just will randomly sign up for education courses, and it's truly not the best course sequencing that you can take. And then they end up in trouble, they don't have prerequisites that they might need when they go to take another course or so forth. If you can't get a hold of either of them, feel free to email Mrs. Latanzi or I. Either of us can also help and advise you. I know that Dr. Bundy does a lot of advising as well of his students. So please find one of your instructors, ask them, ask us, because we don't want you to end up signing up for courses and then it doesn't work for the program. And it happens an awful lot, especially as you get further along in the program. So please make sure that you contact one of those advisors or one of us.
Merle and students, I no longer advise. I am not current on the
Oh.
curriculum.
Okay, then I take that back.
Okay, thanks.
Although I'm sure if you asked him any questions, he would be more than happy to answer. So as I've referenced a few times during this presentation, there are 3 separate programs that we offer. We have an education in the early years program, and that focuses on children from birth through 4th grade. It might be what you have always known to be an early childhood certification, but right now it's through 4th grade. It didn't used to be. And so therefore they've kind of changed it into these early years programs. We also have an education in the middle years program. That's something new in the last few years, and that's only for 4th through 8th grade. So if you're kind of thinking, well, I wanted to do elementary before, and that was K through 8, and I kind of want to teach 3rd or 4th grade, you really have a decision to make. They're very, very different majors. Our early childhood or our education in the early years program focuses a lot on how to teach all the different subjects. Once you get into the education in the middle years program, you are concentrating on subject areas, English, social studies, math, science, that sort of thing. They are gearing your certificate towards middle school. So even though you will be certified to teach grades 4th through 8th, your certification really and the courses that you take are geared towards a middle school type of teacher. So it's something that you really need to consider if you've always kind of thought about elementary. Then we have our secondary course or course of action. And if you want to be a secondary teacher, that's grades 7th through 12th. And again, if you decide that you want to be a high school teacher or a middle school teacher and doing secondary, you also have to choose a concentration area. We recommend very strongly that if you are somebody that is thinking about the middle years program or the secondary program, that you decide on two things very, very early on. And the first one is what you want to concentrate in, what areas that you want to concentrate, what curriculum areas you want to concentrate on. And the second one is where you will want to transfer. You will see in a second when we go over the course sequencing that our course sequencing for our middle and secondary students has a lot more of a flexible kind of, there's a lot more open slots. And the reason that there's a lot of open slots is because you need to fill in courses with ones that the university that you plan to transfer to is requiring, and it's different for every four-year school. Your concentration area also kind of dictates what courses that you're going to take. If you're concentrating in math, you're going to take a whole lot of math courses, more so than somebody who is concentrating in history, for example. So we recommend that very early on, you decide both of those things, areas of concentration and where you want to transfer. It will really help you with what courses you want to take. Do you want to add anything to that, Mrs. Latanzi?
No, not to that. I do agree 100% that it is essential to do that. And even if you have like 2 or 3 in mind, check each one of them out and even tour if you're able to make sure it's really the right fit for you. Because once you get into those courses, it becomes a little more difficult to switch things around.
Right. We've seen a lot of our students taking a whole lot of credits that they end up not needing, and that's unfortunate. We try to make sure that we avoid that with our students. So like I said, for our middle years and our secondary majors, you have to choose 1 to 2 areas of concentration. In most four-year schools, the middle years asks for 2 areas of concentration. Secondary asks you to focus on 1. I think that has started to change in some of the universities. I think that now in the middle years, some of the universities are asking for only 1. It really depends on the program and the school where you want to transfer. So again, another reason why you need to kind of decide either on the school you're going to transfer to, or at least between 1 and 2, so you can figure out the whole concentration area.
And some of them are also in that middle years asking you to pick 1 concentration, but then they want you to do special education as well. So if special education is not what you want to do, then you absolutely, again, need to investigate these 4-year universities to see what their current requirements are.
Merle, if I may, in spite of what I said before about not advising, I do suggest to students to begin a relationship with an academic advisor in education in the school to which they would like to transfer. And that relationship may begin as early as the completion of one's first year at Monco.
Right. That's a really good point. Thank you. Yes, contact the school at which you want to transfer, and yes, contact one of the advisors there so that they can help you with taking the courses that you need. And
it'll be
looking at
Monco classes.
Right.
It will be Monco classes, but they'll tell you which are going to match best with their curricula, particularly if you're on the middle years or secondary level.
Right. They'll make sure that the courses you take are equivalent to the ones that you need to take at the 4-year school so that they transfer easily. Very important point. Thank you, Dr. Bundy. There are some required observation hours, as I mentioned earlier. Everyone, regardless of your major, whether you are early years, middle years, secondary, you have to take EDU 100. That should be the first course that everybody takes if you're even considering becoming any of the education majors. I can't stress that enough. That is the entire purpose of that course. The purpose of the course is truly for you to leave that course with an idea of, yes, this is what I actually want to pursue as a career. And two, I've kind of now narrowed it down with the age level that I would like to teach. So there are 15 required observation hours in that course. We recommend that you vary your observations between different grade levels, between different types of schools, public and private. It gives you a really good idea when you leave that course of really kind of where you want to go with your education career if you want to pursue that as a career option. If you decide to pursue early years, then there are a couple of courses also that require observation hours. EDU 210, which is our introduction to early childhood. There are 2 to 3 hours required for a project, specifically for a project. EDU 213, which is taken by all of you. Any of the 3 majors have to take EDU 213, which is the teaching children with special needs. That's a required course for everybody. And within that course, there are 3.5 required observation hours. And then EDU 225, which is our early childhood literacy course. You have about an hour of observation that is connected to a project. Now, right now, with the way things are, with the situation that we are in, obviously the observation hours that are required in these courses are creative. And you are not really able to get into schools or into a lot of schools right now, even with your clearances. But we have figured out ways creatively to satisfy those observation hours. So do not feel that you won't be able to take these courses or that you won't be able to meet the requirements of these courses during this crazy COVID time. We also don't know how long that's going to last, so we are continuing to be creative. Would you like to speak to this one, Mrs. Latanzi?
Do you want me to? I certainly
Sure.
will.
I need to
Take a break.
have a drink.
Absolutely. So student teaching occurs only for our early years program. It does not occur for middle years or secondary. Those are transferable degrees. But in the early years, you're walking out with your associates and you are required to take student teaching, and we call it EDU 250. You will student teach every day from 9 in the morning till noon, Monday through Friday, for the full 15 weeks of a semester. You will be placed in a high quality private learning center. You do not get to choose your center for where you'd like to go. And you cannot be placed in a public school. I think we really need to make that crystal clear that you will not have the amount of courses that are needed for you to student teach in a public school setting. That is not what's going to happen. You will be at our local learning centers that we have used for many years that meet the criteria of our NACCE accreditation and the colleges program, and we will place you in those centers. The other thing is that many of you who work in those centers are our early childhood education majors. And you need to remember that you cannot be paid to student teach. You are not considered part of the ratio when you are in that classroom. So sometimes there is misinformation out there that, oh, I'm going to student teach right here where I work and I'm still going to get paid. That does not happen. You cannot get paid for student teaching. And just quickly, the way that process works is You will meet with your advisor either at Bluebell, as Mrs. Sultanic said, that's Kristen Fulmer, or you'll meet with Frank O'Neill, who's at our Pottstown campus. They look over your transcript and they let you know if you have all the required courses, because student teaching and EDU 233, which is a curriculum course, they're taken together. And it's the last courses that you take here at the college before getting that degree. And they will then give you the application. Once you fill out the application, you will send it to Mrs. Sultanic or myself or both of us. And then it takes a few weeks for that process to get started of, you know, where we're going to place you. And then when the semester begins, we have a mandatory student teaching meeting on the first day of classes where you learn an awful lot of information about the student teaching process. But just as overall information, that will get you started. Did you want to add anything else to that?
Yes, thank you. There are two things. I just want to reiterate the idea that even if it seems far away for you, it really is something you need to plan ahead of time. You cannot student teach where you work, and you cannot get paid for student teaching. So this is something that needs to really be planned out, sometimes far in advance, because you need to kind of figure out your hours. You need to go into it understanding that you're going to need to maybe change your work hours if you're working. So knowing about that way ahead of time, which is one of the reasons why we discuss it during this seminar, is really important. It's unfortunate for the students that find this out when they go to when they're done with all their education courses and they go to register for 250 and 233, and then they find out that they have to do it 9 to 12 every single day. And then it's hard for them to adjust their schedule. So knowing about it early is beneficial. I also got in the chat, which I'm glad that you spoke to this while I could check it, from Maria, asked in terms of what's going on right now with the pandemic, how is student teaching being handled? We have been extremely lucky that many of the centers that we work with are open. The public schools and things are closing, obviously, but the centers are, most of them are still open. And they are doing very, very well with all of their protocols and keeping everybody safe. So actually right now, every single one of our student teachers is actually placed in a center. None of them are doing anything virtually at this point. So as of right now, that's where we are. Now, obviously that can change at any time, and we have had to be as flexible as possible with that. But as of right now, our students are able to student teach.
And so I think it also brings up the point of, normally we only place our student teachers in the Montgomery County. But with COVID, we have had to possibly place outside of the county. And of course, Montgomery County also butts up against a lot of other counties, and you can just cross the street and be in a different county. So we've had to be a little creative with that as well. And that's worked to our benefit for a number of our students who are bordering a different county other than Montgomery.
Mm-hmm. So this is normally where we would be passing out our brochure, but we obviously can't pass out our brochure. We can post the brochure, but what I did here was I at least put some of our course sequencing here so you can kind of get an idea of our recommended course sequence. This is not required, and it's also showing course sequencing if you're there full-time, which most of our students are not. But we kind of put this together so that if you kind of follow this, you have met prerequisites of courses before you take the next course. You've learned certain things that you should know before you take another course. So this is a really great way to kind of keep your eye on what you should be taking when. Now, you can take English Comp, for example, in your third semester instead of your first. We just felt that this would be the most beneficial for you as you progress through the education program. You can see here in the early years that it is pretty packed with only one course available for an elective. The way that PDE is, the Department of Education is, it is very, very strict with the type and the amount of courses that you have to take in the early years program. We don't have a lot of flexibility at all. You can also see that there are a lot of education courses that are required in our early years program.
I think the one thing that I definitely, and I know Mrs. Sultanic agrees with me, I'm sure Dr. Bundy does as well, is that notice that the Math 103 is in that first semester. You
Mhm.
have to take 2 maths, as Mrs. Sultanic said. And we have found that some of our students do struggle in math courses. So you want to make sure to take that course first and get it under your belt, and then immediately either take Math 104 or Math 106. I believe now they have an A after them because they're for our education majors when you are looking to find the course in the courses. So it's really, really important that you do that. I think it's also important that you don't just try and take all of your education courses in one semester. That's
Mhm.
not how the education courses are set up. There's a reason that we have them in that order so that you're building foundations and then, kind of going to the first floor and getting up to the second floor. That's how we do it. And you'll struggle in those classes if you don't have the foundational courses first. So we really stress that you follow the course outline there as much as possible.
So you can kind of see a difference. This is for our middle years program. Some of the courses are the same. Like I said, your intro to ed and the working with children with special needs are required of all of our education majors, and we recommend that they're taken in your first semester. But you will also see as you progress through that there are a lot of electives. There's math electives, and then just plain electives, science elective, but there's a lot of open spaces, and that's what we talked about. It's the same, quick show you in our secondary, it's very similar. There's a lot of spaces, and it's not just electives that you might want to take. This is where you slide in the courses that your four-year university requires for you to take so that you can transfer as a junior. So while it says electives, they are not truly electives. They are the courses that your four-year school wants you to take. We have many, as you can see, what they call transfer agreements or articulation agreements with four-year schools. We work really hard to make sure that we have worked with all of these universities. And therefore, what we do is we have agreements where we've already gone through everything that's required in our programs. We've already gone through the process of getting those courses approved to transfer as the courses that they require. Therefore, if you get your associate's degree from Montgo in any of our 3 programs, we have transfer agreements with these schools that you will enter as a junior without having to go through that process where you have to go through each course and get them approved, and then some might not be approved, and we've already done all that legwork for you. So any of these schools that you want to go to, you can just, if you get into the schools, you will just transfer right over as a junior. It's really helpful. But again, it's one of those things that's even more helpful for you to decide early on if there's 1 or 2 that you're interested in, because then it will really help and make sure that you are on track and that you don't have to take additional courses when you get there.
The other thing that we offer here at the college through our education program is we have an education expo day where many of these four-year institutions come on campus, or in this case, we had a big Zoom meeting, and you are able to meet with, oftentimes it's the dean of the education department. Sometimes they do bring advisors, enrollment people with them, and you can ask them specific questions about their university or college, and they give you all the information that you need. It's always been very successful. Many students leave there and fill out their applications, and they're accepted, 2 or 3 weeks later. So it's a great chance for you to really start to kind of touch base with these four-year institutions that you're interested in. And we do that each semester.
Right. Towards the end-ish of the semester. So keep your eye out for that. We advertise that the same way we advertise this. So, and right now, you can just Zoom in and go into breakout rooms to meet with different people from different schools. So that is a really helpful time. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. Another thing that our early childhood, our early years majors really need to know about is what they call teach scholarships. They are very, very, very helpful for our early years students. It gives you an option to get full scholarships to college as long as you meet these requirements. So it'll cover your cost of tuition and books. They get a travel stipend. This is if you already work in a daycare center or in a preschool, and you need to teach, what are the hours that you have to have taught or that you have to be teaching in that?
I think
Center.
that I feel like it's 20 hours a week.
20 hours a week. That's what I thought too. If you're
and
working
they
at least
do-
20 hours a week,
Right, it
you
has to
can
be a
apply for this
Keystone
scholarship.
Star.
I'm sorry?
Keystone Stars as well.
Yes.
They have to at least have one Keystone Star, which I think is now a state requirement, period. So every center should fit that need.
Right. And then there is a commitment for that the participants agree to continue working in their child care program for a year after the scholarship ends. So there's give and take there, and it's beneficial for the center as well as beneficial for you. It's kind of a win-win. You should know about this very early on when you're taking courses, if you're already working at least 20 hours a week already in a center.
And in fact, I would think probably by next week, the information will be sent out to all of our education majors because they are starting the application process for Teach for the spring semester. So the advisors will be sending that out, and our administrative assistant as well.
Here's our contact information. Feel free to email us anytime. We are obviously on our email much more than we are on anything else these days. So any questions that you might have, feel free to email us. We have recorded this meeting. We will be posting that. We will put something out letting you know where you can access it. We will also try to post right along with it the PowerPoint presentation. I also saw that there were a couple of questions about how to access the clearances and where to go for that. We have a letter that's already put together for that. I'm going to see if we can kind of post all of it together so that you can access everything. If for some reason we can't and you'd like to know, just shoot us an email. I know that either of us would be very happy to just forward you the letter that includes exactly how to apply for all of those clearances.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have questions that we did not already touch on, or questions about anything we did touch on?
Do we have anyone who is currently still in high school?
I guess not.
Okay. I was just going to mention that if they were dual enrollment students and maybe they've already taken EDU 210 and 100, then they're coming in with 6 credits already.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned it anyway, because it's being recorded and some people that might watch
Oh,
it
that's
may also be high school students.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't have any other questions, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate the good turnout.
I wanted to shout out, if I may, to my students. They got late notification. I apologize for that, but I see a number of my students here. Thank you.
Good.
Oh, that's
I hope
great.
that-
Shout out to Dr. Bundy's class then.
Unmute.
And-
Hi, I'm sorry. I do have a question. You mentioned the mandatory reporter training, but how do we access that?
So we will, if we're going to try to post all of that information when we post this recording. If we are unable to do so, just shoot one of us an email. We have it all written up already, exactly where to go and exactly what to do to apply for any of the 4 clearances. Feel free to email us and we will send that back to you. Again, it's something that we normally hand out when we do this face-to-face, and we can't, but we do have the information for you to be easily accessible.
So you
Okay,
can
thank
just take a quick screenshot of our emails. That's probably the best way, so that you have that information in case you lose it, because you'll notice that Mrs. Sultanic's full last name is not part of her email. The beginning of my email starts with my first formal name. So sometimes students have a hard time finding us. So take a quick screenshot of that and then you'll always have that information.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
You as well, guys. Goodbye.
Thanks, Dr. Bundy.